Thanks a lot, Benny, for being here. It's a great pleasure, and welcome to Drumlosophy.
Thank you so much. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's been 2 years since the last time we met at one of your camp in Italy. So,
Yes,
how are you in these crazy pandemic times? I hope you're fine.
I'm fine. My family's fine,
Yeah.
thankfully. Yes, yes. So everyone is healthy or stayed healthy, and there's of course less touring, less playing, less hugging. I normally love hugging, but that's not happening right now. But yeah, I mean I the thing is, over the last couple of years, I so much things built up that I always said like, oh, when I have more time at home, I need to do those, but I can't. And so I took it, although it's of course a dramatic situation all over the world, but for me personally, I took it as kind of an opportunity to be like, okay, you know what? I will finish these projects. I'll do whatever I can do here, and there was actually more than I thought.
Yeah, yeah, cool. So on the positive side, you actually had a boost on finishing your new book, Effective Practice
Yes.
for Musicians. So here we are talking about that book. But before we get into that, into more details, tell us, how was the approach of writing that book? I mean, did you collect ideas from other books? Did you gather information during your camps or something else? Tell us a little bit about.
Yes, I mean all of that. I mean, I've been passionate about the subject for, as you probably know, for like 20 years. I've been teaching it. I've been talking about it in interviews, and I've done a whole drum camp about that that has been very well received usually, and I've spoken at universities about this and really like all over the world, because um, yeah, like 20 years ago when I kind of finished studying music at a university, then I just realized that things weren't going as I thought they were going. The progress wasn't as I thought, and I just realized that I I, I was incredibly chaotic because I grew up as a self-taught
Okay.
musician, and the information got more and more, and but my way or my ability to cope with that and put it into my playing or even just to structure it and to select things and to get an overview and even just to know where I'm maybe better at or maybe worse at, what I need to improve or not. I had just no idea. And if you don't have these things in place and then just more and more stuff that you could do comes in,
Yeah.
it's actually just confusing. Although it's great nowadays with the internet, there's no shortage of things you could do and you should do, and
Yeah.
here's another thing you can practice and another tip for today. And but if you don't know what you want, and if it doesn't start from, okay, what is the right thing for me right now? If you don't know that with absolute certainty, then it's actually pretty stressful and frustrating.
Yeah, and
Um,
sometimes you get, in a place where you are blinded with too many choices. And I
no,
guess the ability to select the right material and exclude all the rest, it's a skill in itself that must be developed, I guess. What do you think of
yes.
that?
And I think we're now in the situation where many people get that. They get that, oh, look, I cannot just practice everything. It's not possible. So many get this feeling, this anxious feeling. But then the next step is, how do I even find out what the right thing is? And how do I really feel confident about that decision? So because what happens to many people as well, and I did a survey on my Instagram channel. I asked
Yeah.
around and I got over 1,000 letters and messages, sometimes very long letters, and I read them all, and I categorized them. And most of when I asked, like, what do you struggle with? What is difficult for you in terms of practicing or making progress on your instrument? Most of them said that they're overwhelmed, that they don't know what to do, that they don't know when is an exercise finished, what is the best time to practice, um, uh, how can I cross something off, um, and what is the best thing for me right now. And the other thing is, if you're not 100% confident in that, and you checked it and really have a process to thinking about that, then even if you decide on one thing and do that for a while, and while doing that, all the other things come in, it's like, oh, you could also, oh, here's a great link. You know, I sent you a link from a new YouTube exercise and YouTube video. Then it's very hard to not get distracted by that.
Yeah.
And we also found out, of course, everyone I think knows that if you do one thing a little bit and then you jump to the other thing and then you jump to the next thing, it might be exciting and you always have something new to try out and you see new input, but progress is not really possible if you just touch the surface lightly of many things. If you really want something to become part of your playing, you have to spend a little bit of time with that. And to be comfortable with doing that, you have to be really, really sure that you know where you are, you know where you want to go, and then what fits that straight line, so to speak.
Okay.
And then how to deal with that.
If you just have to pick up 3 ingredients for an effective practice routine, what would they be?
Well, unfortunately, there are more than 3.
Yeah.
but I mean, the 3 biggest ones are the why. So why are you even practicing? Why should you even spend time with any of this? The why. The why is usually also where motivation comes from.
Okay.
If you don't know why you should do something, or if you haven't answered that why question for yourself, then doubt comes in. And rightfully so, because it's a good question. That's all what kids do, right? It's like, do this. Why? But this is like this. Why? Like, it's a good question because you have to have a strong why to really have a good reason to do anything.
Yeah.
And so you got to find that out. What do you really want to become better at the instrument? And some people say, oh, I don't know that exactly. And I have a process in the book, how you can really, by answering some questions that I lay out, how you can really get to this point where you get an idea of like, oh, I would really find that very attractive. Okay. And then usually the point comes is like, yeah, but that's unrealistic or that's very difficult. It's like, and then you just have to shush that and be like, yeah, maybe, but let's just look at what would be nice, what would be really nice, and what would turn you on, what would be like, so to have a strong why. And then the next is the here and now. So where are you right now? What are your strengths, your weaknesses? Maybe you get surprised when you play live by that you speed up or slow down, or that maybe something you thought you could do is not really there, or maybe a completely new thing interests you, but you don't know how to get there. So, but where are you right now? So if you have these 2 points of like, where do I want to go and where are you right now, you can draw a line and say like, okay, what will get me there? And what is the next step? And this is the third thing. So the why, the here and now, and the next step. And of course, there is a little bit of a process involved in all of these. And there are a couple of principles at play that I go through in the first chapter of the book. Like we have a distorted sense of discipline. Usually, we think we have to be more disciplined. So there is something to that. How you can actually make more time to practice is a problem for many people. What is the best time to practice? How to make your practice environment, your practice room or a hotel room, suitable to make it easy for you to get into it and to start again. And then there are a couple of tools that help you with that. So I talk about the importance and how to use a timer and how to use I have one right here. It's my kitchen timer. Here's another one. I have many timers.
You have many.
Yeah, of course, also on my phone. How to use recording. It's a very important measurement tool, especially for musicians, because we produce for the hearing, for the listening experience. And a journal. So where you write out what you do a little bit. It's not huge paperwork, but it's to just have kind of a journal of like, okay, what did I do yesterday? What will I do? No. To keep on track, to have less of a to basically save all that time when you go into the practice room and say, oh, what should I do? It's like, no, what did I do yesterday? What tempo was that? How can I get this further? So a lot of these questions, when you have all these things in place, get answered, and then there is less friction, basically. Because sometimes people are very motivated, but then if there's too much kind of friction, be like, oh, but that is difficult, and that is a little bit, and I don't know about this, or oh, damn, my drum set is not set up, or like whatever it can be, even the best efforts and the best motivation then can be dried out. And it's the same with me when I want to go running in the morning, but I don't have the bottled water, my shoes are still wet, and I don't have my workout clothes there somewhere, and I'm like, nah, I'll go to bed again or something. So you can actually help yourself and trick yourself into good behaviors with a couple of tools around it. And that's where the book tackles a couple of things that sound very scary, like motivation and discipline and consistency and things like that. But when you have a couple of nice tricks and helpers, people are usually amazed if they use them, how disciplined they actually are and how consistent they actually can be. So,
So tell us a little bit about the structure of the book. I mean, I guess there are many chapters. Should anyone start from chapter 1 and go straight till the end, or can someone jump from one chapter to the other if they think they need to? Or tell us a little bit about
Yes. Although I would, of course, love if people really go from the beginning to end. I gotta say that everywhere in the book, if you just use like 10% here and a little bit there, these things all work separately by themselves. They will all improve your practicing and give you more clarity and help you in overcoming certain challenges. But the true magic really comes in when you really do it from beginning to finish, that it all works like a well-oiled machine. It kind of all it's bigger than the sum of its parts, basically. It really, and at the end, if you really follow through to the end, you will end up with a custom-made practice plan individually for you. So it's a very practical handbook almost, like you just follow the steps, and then you have a practice plan, and you have all these questions kind of answered, and you learned a lot about how to tackle challenges and stuff. So, I mean, can I give you a quick overview of?
Absolutely, yeah.
So this is a first. I never did this. You're the first where I reveal this. So level 1 is where you basically learn these important principles of mindset necessary for effective practicing. And I did that because I want to introduce and make a level where there is an understanding of all the tools we will use. So then when we later put it into a system, that I don't have to explain them again, and they will just seem familiar and be like, oh, wow, that works here. And oh, we put that here. So what it goes through here is how to set up the ultimate practice room environment, the 3 must-have tools for practicing, how to deal with frustration and judgment, which is an important
Big one. Yeah.
How to focus and minimize and prevent distractions, what's the best time to practice, how to make time to practice, tips on attitude and how to fall in love with discipline, which sounds maybe like a mouthful for many people, but I can prove it, and how to keep motivated. And then a couple of very precise, actually, like practice formulas that you can use. I called one the whale method, how to tackle big things by making them small. I have the checklist cycle, which kind of is a way to go through qualities and kind of like a sculptor does, to be like, oh, this. So all these things get introduced there. That's level 1. Basic kind of like, okay, let's find out what is all at play here. Level 2 then is where we set up your personal EPM system, effective practicing for musicians system. There we will define those 3 things we talked about in the beginning: the why, the here and now, and the next step. This is more kind of a workshop thing. There are a couple of questions that you have to answer and then
Okay.
figure these things out. And I lead
So
you
it's
step by
pretty
step.
interactive, right? It's pretty interactive.
It's
Yeah.
pretty practical. The
Okay.
first version of the book was there was a lot of science and brain science still in there, and I basically and it was way too long. And then I basically said like, no, I want this to be like a guide book where you really feel like I'm coaching you personally
Hmm.
through through this program, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so the why, the here and now, and the next step. So we define exactly 3 goals for the next 3 months and how to kind of manage that. And then the level 3 is really about the practical application. So frequently asked questions, what can happen? There's a lot of but if this, what then? And now this happened, and what do I do now? So
Yeah.
it's really then this third part is more even deeper of a coaching of like, okay, you're doing this now, and maybe if you hit a challenge there, that's what to do about it. That's what to do about it. And also that how to then do it after those 3 months or 3 years, like how to keep this system fresh and updated,
Mhm.
and how can it serve you if your goals change, if your life changes, which of course it does,
Yeah.
and so a little bit of troubleshooting and stuff like that. So these 3 levels are basically kind of the process that I take people through, and I hope it will help many people. I certainly wished I would have had this book
Yeah.
many
So
years ago.
if you had the chance to go back in
Mm.
time and meet your younger self, the younger Benny, what tips would you give to your younger self, and what mistakes would you tell your younger selves to avoid while
Oh,
practicing? I mean,
it would be a long conversation. Um, well, I I would start exactly like the book starts, basically. I would first um, ask him what's going on, how he feels about his practicing and his progress, which I did with many students and also in this survey and over the years. And then I would explain why these things kind of happen and how he can change it. And
okay.
then the guy would probably not believe it. And then I would just start at the beginning. And the first step that I usually start with, and also in the book, is, and how I started to get into this,
Hmm.
is to separate playing and practicing, to
Wow.
define what practicing really is.
Mhm.
And that was the thing that I would have needed most. And the first thing that I changed back then is to really define, okay, uh, I can spend time with my instrument,
Mhm.
but that's not automatically practicing. And uh, what is practicing? What do I need? What can help me there?
Mhm.
And then to close that off and say, then I do some playing. And to
Okay.
keep those two things really nice and clean and not let them poison each other, which is usually the case. So where I usually tried something out, I then struggled with it. And then, because I felt bad,
Mhm.
I went into playing and I then felt really good. And then, after the hour or 2 hours were over, I was really surprised that I didn't get anything done.
Mhm.
And it was almost like being in a trance of like,
Yeah.
I didn't really have a control over that. It just was always something that kind of happened. And here's the deal. A lot of people say, yeah, but maybe I'm not a professional musician, or I don't wanna play with the Buddy Rich Big Band the next month. So why do I have to be effective? Why do I have to like? I'll just want to have fun.
Mhm.
I heard that on hundreds of planets and from hundreds of people,
Yeah.
um, especially with kids and especially also with older guys that take it up as a hobby.
Yeah.
They usually say that. But there comes a point in time where we usually make a like a calculation between time spent and result had, so to
Okay.
speak.
Yeah.
So even a kid, even an adult, full grown, will after a while say, well, I'm doing this for such a while now and I had a lot of fun. But when there is no progress, motivation goes away. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, it's like,
Fades
why
away.
should I do this? So I think it's for everyone. I think it would have been great back then for me as even earlier as a beginner. And it's also something that I would recommend to teachers because I mean, this book will focus on, okay, you can put that little bit of nice organization and structure and use these tools for yourself.
Yeah.
But of course, when you're a teacher, you can use this whole system. And that's what I've done for many years. And help your teacher, help your student figure that out. And basically that automatically structures your whole way of teaching by having certain time spans to do certain things and by a healthy conversation of like, okay, what do you want to actually do instead of telling people what to do and then ask themselves why people are not motivated, right?
Yeah.
So it has to be your own why. Everyone does things because of their own reasons.
So if, let's say, we have a structured practice plan, we have all things in place, and then we finally play live with other people, with other musicians. Sometimes there's a gap, there's a friction between the stuff you practice and the outcome you get while performing. How would you bridge that gap?
The gap occurs when the practicing situation is not close enough to the live situation. So I did some band coaching for a record company once. They got me in after a failed a failed showcase that they had with the band, and they were destroyed. And they said like, but we could play everything so well, and at the showcase it just went all to shit. And they brought me in and said like, okay, gotta spend some. And I said, play for me exactly like you played, like you practiced. Like do your practice setup and play through the set list. I want to hear the whole concert like you prepared for it. And they did. And then I realized immediately what was going on because I saw the tape of the recording of the showcase that failed. And so this is just an example. They, and many bands do this, they stand in a circle, and so the singer looks towards the drummer looks towards the singer, and everyone can see each other and they communicate, and you see these little things. And I saw him back then. It was like the guitarist lifted his
cue each
guitar.
other.
Exactly. So there's a lot of like non-verbal but visual. They did that and they were proud of themselves. It was great. It sounded great. The gig came, the singer and the guitarists turn around, communication is gone. And then, although they could play all the parts, they didn't know, they weren't in agreement when the next part will come and stuff. And that can, of course, mess everything up. And it's a simple thing like this. So I had another band myself where I had to change like samples and sounds on a keyboard during the show. And at the first show, it was horrible because after each song, the light engineer turned the lights out. So did a blackout between the songs. And I couldn't find the sounds anymore. And it was like, boing, and it was just horrible. So we said before every concert now, we do one run through in the dark. And then you find out things like, oh, you need these little lights that you can get that are battery powered, or you get these neon reflective things that you can put on things, and all these kind of things. So so that's in terms of performance. In our way of practicing, it's usually as simple as you can practice a lick or an idea, but if you don't practice it in time, it's already less applicable. If you don't practice it in a flow, it's less applicable. For us drummers, and this is the last example, I have thousands of them.
Go on.
But for us drummers, my favorite one is this: that people practice rolls like and then they get slower and slower and faster, and they think like that's the best roll exercise ever. It's horrible, because unless you play in an orchestra, you will never need that in a band. So what you really need is short spurts that you can start and stop in different tempos, and be able to start and stop it. so you actually have to practice the starting and stopping, right? It's not about getting a good sound with accelerando and blah blah blah, but it's really about, okay, let me put little spurs of these, and this is more applicable. So, but it helps to know, like, why do I want to practice something, and then really define the goal, kind of like a performance. And the good thing is, when you record yourself a lot to measure yourself, basically at the end of every practice session, it will be a tiny little performance where you have to be, you know what? Oh, let's try it now. Let's give it my best shot. And so I think that helps.
A big question that a lot of students ask me is, how can I really concentrate on the task at hand? So do you have any tips to do that, to achieve that?
Yes. I have a whole chapter about focus and distractions. Wow. And it's, I mean, there are 2 or 3 different things that can happen and that usually make it hard for us. There are outer distractions and there are inner distractions. So outer distractions have to be managed or prevented. Even that would be the best. This can be as simple as deciding how long you want to practice and when, and communicate that to your loved ones, for example, to be like, look, the next hour I will, and so people kind of know. Also, you turn off your phone, you turn off notifications. So anything that can come in, to take a little bit of time before and be like, okay, what are all the inputs that are possible? The doorbell, the open window with people walking by. Can I put something there so I don't get distracted there? So whatever comes in, how can I cut that out? That's one thing. The other thing is, do I have a free mind? And I call this the boot up sequence. I always do this before I get into the practice room. I say, like, what is on my mind? Oh, I have to do this. Oh, I have to do this. Oh, I have to do this. And then I take a piece of paper, I write it down, I fold it, I go into the practice room, put it in front of the door. So my subconscious can be like, wow, he will definitely stumble over this. I don't have to remind this guy of this. And then I can pick this luggage up. I can have it back after the practice session. But now I have it stored here. And it's just like I get rid of it. I put it out of my head. I'm certain I will not forget it. But I want to take a break of this. I want to take a short vacation of this. So I put it in front of the door. The other thing is I set a timer. So I don't have to check the clock all the time, right? I don't have to be like practicing, oh, is it already? No, I'm fully practicing. And then I get woken up. I get kind of like, hey, like, So I delegate and I outsource and I get rid of all the additional things I would have to do and take care about. So I can really be dumb and happy and just focus on the task at hand and get lost in it in a beautiful way.
If we put the perspective on just the drummers, do you think that we can use the effective practicing books in unison with the language of drumming book?
Sure.
Would they integrate? And if you had any tips on how to integrate your language of drumming method with this new book?
Sure. I mean, I'm of course a little bit biased. I think the language of drumming is great.
Obviously,
yeah, it's amazing. But of course, I mean, the language of drumming has snare drum stuff, independent stuff, like groove stuff, all kinds of vocabulary exercises and repertoire basically in there. So if that is something you want to improve at, of course, then in your goal that you pick a certain page. I mean, that's the easiest thing to define, right? You have to make your goals very specific, measurable, with a deadline. And it's like a checklist for me of like, I look at my goal, then I say like, does it fulfill? Is it really specific? Is it really measurable? Do I know when I have finished that or not? Which is important for also a feeling of satisfaction or not.
Yeah.
And you can do this, and I explain it in the book how you can do this with very, very nebulous things. If you see a Tony Williams video and you want to play this, like, okay, how do you define that very clearly? And there are a couple of ways to do that, but it's even clearer if you have a book and say, like, till December 30th, I will play the language of drumming alphabet in flams, every letter 4 times, tempo 130, without rest, relaxed, and blah blah. And then I really have defined, like, okay, because I will then know, oh, I played it at another tempo, or oh, I didn't play the whole alphabet, or so I can really see, like, how am I doing? Can I play half of it already? So I have like a scoreboard, like at a soccer game or something. I know, like, oh, I'm a point behind, and I'm usually am. By the way, I really want to make that clear. If I have these 3 months cycles, I usually take it easy in the first one. Then in the second one, I think, like, oh, I gotta, and in the third one, I
rush
do.
it.
Yeah, I do overtime, and I practice the day before, like a whole day, and that's fine. But it pushes me, and of course you can use, but whatever books. The most important thing only is, and let me be selfless here, is that it has to fit what you want to do. I would never put the method before the goal. What do you want? And if the language of drumming fits in there, yes, please use it. But if it doesn't fit in there, do something else. If you want to learn stick tricks, then you have to focus on something else. Or if you want to learn sight reading in big band or something, you have to do something else. But if it's about, like, okay, snare vocabulary, rudimental vocabulary, or independence, I think the language of drumming is pretty good at that. But but whatever works.
Some people make a mistake of, like you said, putting the drum method before the why. So they feel the need to practice out of a very famous drum method just because it's famous, and not because it can bring some results. Do you find this little bias that's happening in the drumming community?
Sure. I mean, I'm pretty relaxed there. I mean, people could do whatever they want to do, as far as I'm concerned. But the only thing is, for some people, it's better they do something instead of nothing. But then if they wonder why they don't feel like they want to go back to the practice room, or they don't make much progress, or they play stuff that they then cannot necessarily use, then you have to do the work of, like, okay, let me get an overview here. What do I actually want? It's like you go to the supermarket hungry, and you don't have your shopping list with you.
Okay.
It's like it happened to me many times that I go and, like, I don't need the shopping list, and then you buy anything, but not the thing that you really need, and the thing is like, so. It's a very simple principle, but if especially if I'm a father, and I wear many hats, and I think even people that are touring and doing different things and have a family, or people that are studying, or people that only do this as a hobby, right? Like, they just want to enjoy it, but they have a job. They come home and they're already a little bit exhausted. I think it is great to have a way with this book to be like, okay, how can it be fun? How can it be clear? And how can I make a lot of progress? And in a less amount of time, I think it's a good idea nowadays.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So will it be just a paper copy or digital as well?
It will not be digital as far as I can see in the future, because it's just the digital stuff is just so tough to monetize, to be quite honest. It's like, of course, I want as many people as possible to have the book, but it took me 7 years to write it, and I think the knowledge in there will save so much time and frustration that I'm pretty confident that the $30 are worth it. So Yeah, the ebook kind of thing. Also, honestly, I like actual books. I like we spend
The
a lot of
analog version.
yes, analog, and it lasts for 100 years. Even when you have an update, or even when you lose your hard drive, you will have this thing, and you can give it to your son if you want.
Yeah.
And we I really spend a little bit of money to make the cover really, really nice, and to make it a good quality book. So I think the reading experience will be nice. But I can understand that people want to have it in all kinds of languages, in all kinds of forms. But we
Yeah.
will definitely start with the hardcover book right now, and then let's
Okay.
see.
So can they order the book through your site, right?
You can order it right now. It's being printed right now, and they can pre-order it, and we hope to get it out. It's November right now when we record this, and we hope to get it out. I'm pretty confident we can get it out before Christmas to
Okay. So
everyone.
are you planning to do some camps on these topics?
Yes, I mean, I had the effective practicing camp for a while now.
Yeah.
And actually, a lot of experience that I gathered there with students was, of course, flowing into this book.
Mhm.
But I will now, next year, there will be an effective practicing for musicians camp,
Yeah.
and that's completely reworked on the basis of this book again. It's a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more in depth, and so the goal is really either if you have read the book, that you really get a hands-on coaching experience on, okay, let's see if there are any questions, if there's anything you think is not working, let's really drill down on it. Or if you haven't read the book, then it's like, okay, like let's introduce you to the thing, and then you can have the book as a handbook kind of thing. But so that everyone that did the camp in the end has a custom-made practice plan and knows exactly what to practice, how often, when, and that, I think that would be great. I would have loved to have that when I
Back
was
then.
studying. Yeah,
Yeah. So man, thanks a lot for your time. It's
big
been a
pleasure.
great pleasure, and good luck for the selling of your new book.
Thank you so much.
And I hope to catch you soon, man.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.